Thought of this, we've been trying for a couple of years now to push the academic industry collaboration talk, and I said perhaps one good way to start a discussion is around the book. So this is a recent publication. It's by the BCS, which is the British Computer Society in the UK, which is the professional body for IT practitioners. And the two authors themselves, they are practitioners, they are not academics. I need to thank the sponsors again. I'll thank them now and I'll thank them in the end. So who are the participants and our interests? So Rene Rasmussen into software development. I put a question mark there because you didn't come back to me whether that's right or not. I am guessing it's right. Dr. Mohamed Salama, project management. Dr. Taha Elhag, construction project management. And myself, Hind Zantout, I'm not a software developer, but I am in academia, I teach courses to do with software development. So BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, they had a textbook, Agile Foundations. They had a textbook, Agile Testing Foundations. They have a textbook, Business Analysis, completely on its own, and another textbook, Business Analysis Techniques. So the two authors who, Deborah Paul and Linda Girvan, they claim that they wanted, or their rationale behind another BCS book was to bridge this gap between business analysis and Agile. My general comments on this book, it's a very easy read, extremely easy to read, very clearly written. It has good overview of topics. I mean, it has a lot of topics, but it's not very thick, as you can see. So it does not go into a lot of details. So at that level, it's a nice read. There is some repetition from chapter to chapter, but I find, especially if someone is new to Agile, I think that would be a very good thing to have because it reinforces concepts. So if you, in one chapter, they are discussing one concept from one angle, and the next one from a different angle, so a repetition is not harmful. So saying just enough, just in time, and I think they highlight it in bold as well. So important concepts get reinforced either by repetition or by having them in bold. There are also some very short examples that are worked through, and I'll show one of them later. On the other side there, for me, I mean, as an academic, there's a lot of overlapping references at the end of each chapter. If I say, where did you get that information from? And then I find there's a lot of overlap. So for me, there wasn't enough background reading, maybe because the two authors are actually practitioners and they just said, this is all what I want to say. I don't want to delve deeper into the topic, and which is fine. There is, they address the underlying Agile theory. So what is Agile? What is it based on? They do all that at a high level. But the emphasis is very much on practical application. What I think would have been helpful if someone is thinking about sort of how to improve this book, they use a lot of abbreviations in each chapter. And I've looked at the start of the book, I looked at the end of the book, and there is no summary of what these abbreviations are, because very often in our field, abbreviations could mean two different things, two completely different things. So that's that. So the book focus, and actually my presentation is based very much on their own presentation, which you can download from the BCS website and have a look at what they said there. And I thought, rather than summarizing book chapters and so on, I thought I'll build my presentation on the key points that they were trying to bring across in their presentation, because I thought that will be the point, the unique selling point of their book. So they say, how can business analysis help Agile projects? And then how can Agile help the business analysts? So it's a two-way street. So an Agile analyst must combine several approaches. So an Agile analyst will have in mind as a background Agile philosophy and principles, which were mentioned a lot early on. There is perhaps a toolkit and methods and techniques that help along the way, because just having the philosophy on its own, sometimes if it's a big organization, sometimes if there are practical things that you need to, you need tools to solve practical aspects of communication, of what have you, then toolkits and methods would be, of course, very useful. And you will also have business thinking approach. So quite a few overlaps there. And I found sort of in this book, there's lots of thinking. So they talk about business thinking. And within business thinking, there is one approach which is systems thinking. Another one, service thinking. Another one mentioned lean thinking. I'll just leave the question marks here. The coming slides will elaborate. What they leave out is creative thinking, innovative thinking. So I thought that bit of thinking was missing. So systems thinking, for those who do not know, it's around about here, sitting, systems thinking. This is from the Learning Organization, Peter Senger's book, The Learning Organization, the 5th discipline. And the main idea about systems thinking is you keep having in mind the overall picture, the big picture, the whole. Even when you drill down to smaller level, you don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Yeah? Because in any system, you will have different units working together. They have to work in harmony. There's feedback. So there's all sorts of discussions that you go into, and I don't think it's the time here for me to go into that. But in this particular book, what is of interest is you see the whole, and then you see the patterns of change. And this book, I mean, those who read it will confirm this, that they talk about Agile within the context of change projects and how that change is managed. And you need to understand the interconnectedness. So that's what systems thinking is about. There's a new kind of thinking, I don't know how long that's been around, but of course the service economy did not jump to, 20 years ago service economy was not predominant in our economies. It is today. So service thinking, if you want, is a new approach to addressing the peculiarities of a service-dominant economy. So when you are your Ubers, your Airbnbs, when your focus is more on delivering a service rather than a product, than the car itself, yeah, or the hotel room itself. So to accommodate the move to service-dominant economy, so you have 6 principles there in service thinking. Co-creation where you empower employees. The service system will inevitably have new interactions different from typical systems. What are the hotspots? Hotspots meaning where are my problem areas? Usually the platform is going to be global, mobile, and social to deliver. You are in a continuous cycle, run, transform, innovate, run, transform, innovate. And you will have multi-sided metrics. So whatever applied before when you are producing a car, what are the key performance indicators for that you have the best car now or you are on track? Here your metrics are multi-sided. You want to, in the age of Twitter, you want to say, okay, what are my customers saying about this new feature that I just put in to my website that I added? So service thinking. Lean thinking, I think that's perhaps also a redundant slide within the context of this conference, because the lean principles, if you like, define the value, map your value stream, create the flow, establish pull, and pursue in pursuit of perfection. So they touch on that. Then they mention 3 levels of business thinking. So business analysis. So your business analysis can be at the top enterprise level. So the overall overarching sort of the whole enterprise. Then you drill down to a program level. And then within a program, you might have several projects. Okay, so there are several levels of business analysis to be involved in. And the enterprise business analysis context is described as follows. So you have your business use cases. Yeah? That feeds into, so you are analyzing that without any consideration of here's where the technology happens, right? And perhaps, I mean, this is something I thought of, but it wasn't sort of clearly indicated in the book, but I chatted with someone over lunch at that, and I said, well, it's fine and good to not consider the technology, but today the lines between the actual business and the technology is becoming fuzzy and fuzzy by the day. So that line is getting blurred, and where does technology start and where does the business stop? Yeah, I mean, can you today, for example, have a scenario where people up here will start inventing use cases completely oblivious of what technology can do? It cannot happen. Yeah, so I found this is a little bit, so this blue line is dotted, maybe it's dotted because to indicate their gaps, but I think this is just coincidental. I don't think they meant it as that. But for me, I think this dotted line should be read with caution. In some organization, it still applies, but I suppose in other organizations, not so much. So, and this is, if you can see here, then you look at systems, and the way they configured it is that systems, yeah, you can think of a system, but it's not necessarily linked to a particular technology. That's their take on it. They mention goal versus functional decomposition. So as an entrepreneur, I want to open a cafe so I can make money. So which one of these is goal decomposition and which one of these is functional? Is the blue one the goal or the yellow one the goal? Hazard a guess. And I was cheeky, I swapped them around because the function, the goal decomposition is this one, because at the end of the day, my goal is to serve hot drinks, to serve snacks, and to serve cold drinks, without consideration of identify the premises, obtain equipment to make drinks, obtain table and chairs. Okay, so these two approaches. This one is wrong. This one should be goal. Sorry, this one should be summary goal, not high summary. So Coburn's specifies these 4 levels. So at the very highest level, I want to open a profitable cafe. At the goal level, I want to serve hot drinks, and later on, I want to serve cold drinks and serve snacks, okay, so they can evolve over time. At C level, that's the user goal, so I want to serve coffee. And then at the sub-goal, which is the least important, perhaps, I want to buy the flasks, I want to buy the cups, I want to buy the milk, and so on. So I think that's, a useful explanation. And here's the author's summary. So they touch upon the Agile philosophy. They talk about business analysis thinking. They talk about modeling the business. There's a good chapter on prioritization. The goal decomposition, they go at length into how to achieve that. They emphasize throughout the book, chapter by chapter, iterative and incremental, deliver just what is needed at that time. And there's some sort of system and user modeling. And I'll end with thanking our sponsors again. Okay, I'm on time. Thank you.
It's a separate book for business analysis, but I want to ask you, what do you think? Do business analysis should be a part of the sprint, or it should be something separate beforehand to identify the goal, and then the sprint should run?
You want to ask someone from industry, or I mean, I can start by, I can start by giving you sort of I'll keep the focus on the book, and the analysts are part in every process. You don't exclude them at any stage, so they have to be very much part of the development team, because you cannot wait, like they said this morning, you cannot wait till the end, till you reach the cliff to say, well, actually, that's not really what we wanted. Yeah, so the business analyst role is at the start and throughout. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just to give you a brief context of why I'm here also, I am a title product developer, but in fact the book resonated very well with what I do. The way I see it is I'm half business analyst, half product owner, half project coordinator, somewhere in between. And the very specific project that I'm working on, we actually have a traditional PO that's very technically focused, very into the latter part of the model, into defining the technical aspects, model choices, backlog, and so on. But then you have what we call a business owner, basically, which is me on the same team. And him and I have to be completely aligned. We're coming with separate, two different perspectives to the same topic. So we identify a client need, but I come with what is this business value, how do you think about that? And he says, what are the technical limitations and considerations we need to make? And I would argue that without both of us, we certainly stand to lose a lot of the time. And traditionally, you would want to cut off the business part because it's too expensive. That's also what they try to argue against, but that is a major failure.
Yeah.
For example, in our case, in my company, we have clients from different countries, and we have to make business analysis with them.
Remote.
Yes,
Remote.
And, it is from 2 weeks, 3 weeks period. That I can only send my business analyst there to understand what's the gap between our product and what they want. So I send them and they make the business analysis, then prepare the system, the requirement specifications, and then return to the developer. So, for example, this book or your experience can advise me something that I can do in Agile.
Yeah, I think it's very important, the integration between the business analysis and business analysts with the agility thinking. And the book claims that they are trying to make that connection, they're trying to make that link, how business analysis could be integrated within the agility principles and methods and thinking. But there are some gaps in the book, to be very frank. When I analyze the different chapters, the aim for them always to link in each chapter, the aspects they address in each chapter, to make that kind of connection and that kind of integration, how they are integrated, and how agility thinking will have influence and improve business analysis and vice versa. But there are gaps in different chapters. There are gaps of how you can make that link. And I have some examples. I can elaborate on them if you like. So, for example, in chapter 3, for example, they talked about how to adapt the Agile manifesto for business analysis improvement. But for example, in this chapter, they selected 3 of the manifesto aspects, and they left out the 4th one, which is responding to change over flowing a plan. And in my view, this is also very important to be integrated as well. And I put a question mark why they've left this out when they selected the other 3 aspects in the manifesto. So this is one example. Another example, in chapter 7, for example, they talked about, actually this is a very nice, good chapter on stakeholder management, the different stakeholders involved in any project. And they gave really good, nice background about stakeholder management. But what I felt, they couldn't make that kind of connection of how agile thinking will improve and enhance stakeholder management. So they brought stakeholder management in chapter 7 as we do it normally, but they just came short of how making that kind of link and how, and this is, there are many other examples in different chapters as well. Yeah.
Can I just comment on, after I read the book, and perhaps I'm the only one on the panel that comes from management, business management, academic perspective, I felt that, well, first, I didn't really find any new information or even any advice on doing things different than what I imagined things should be done. But I felt that these are two practitioners who have been struggling, trying to get what they are doing right through the practice that they have been trained to do. So they have come up with reflection on how to improve things. And in doing so, they are using a mixed terminology and, you know, like mix and match from different aspects of the theory. Things that they are saying are very, very obvious to any academic in business management, but perhaps are more and better defined. But I can understand that from a practitioner point of view, it is lacking severely. Like, for example, well, everyone with a first degree in management understands the importance of what is known as strategic alignment. You can't have your operational level not aligned with your strategic level, and strategic level at the business unit level and at a corporate level. But
In reality.
as an individual who spent 15 years of my life in practice before moving to academia, I'm not that old by the way, but I know that this rarely happens in real life. So when a practitioner who hasn't been to academia perhaps brings this as a key aspect and write a whole textbook, which is business analysis, on that I can understand where they are coming from. So I think this is another justification for why we are interested in delivering a track, in an academic track within such what I call it a very professional dominated event. But this is another cause, good cause, to call for the partnering between academia and practice. Perhaps professionals and academics should get more closer and work things out, because I believe that this can give rise to even more fruitful practices that can be even better than what we are seeing now. Professionals have proven through the Agile and others that they can come up with very, very, very interesting developments to the practice, which prove to be very good, and we are documenting it and trying to understand it and even analyze it from a business perspective. So imagine if both work together, it can be very useful.
I think the key is that industry have to function in an environment with a lot of constraints, whereas academics have the luxury of, you know, you can read 3 books and 4 books and 5 books, but show me a practitioner who can. I'm not talking books on this level. I'm talking very serious, let's say, management books, serious books on management, right? And yeah, perhaps that's.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the practitioners, they get their targets through achieving the cost and the scope and perhaps the time. Academics get their promotion through publishing in 3 and 4 star journals. So it's a very different perspective. And sometimes, well, I've spent a good number of years on developing business cost models for the construction industry. And when I was discussing it with practitioners, I had to agree that neither my models, so that I won't take it personal, nor any of the academic models developed have been applied to practice. So we've been doing it for our own, you know, as a hobby.
But I think, yeah.
Comment on where they're coming from. I think I can recognize that if you've been working as a business analyst for many, many years, and you're certainly faced with a hardcore development team following Scrum by the book, you start to argue business value and more fluffy stuff. They stick to their rules. The product owner knows to follow that. They might even challenge you. So I think they will really hit their head against the wall several times, and that's what they're trying to voice some of the frustrations, trying to say how can we then build on it. But what really struck me, and also this morning, if you look at this program, this panel discussion was the only one that mentioned business.
Yeah.
The thing in the presentation was it all comes down to business value. So if you have an IT team, a product owner that never thinks in terms of business, they cannot link what we're building to business value, but what the customer needs. But if the customer needs something and it has no value, business value, then we have a misalignment. So in that sense,
The value, the emphasis is on value in many.
that's exactly what resonated with me, because they're not saying bring in a person full time on each team. They're saying have someone that spends time on this, and they're trying to justify spending maybe more time on business analysis, not necessarily by a person with that title, but by anyone being aware of it. And I try to do the same with the team I'm in, sort of pushing away some of that, not the responsibility, but thinking of mindset also to include business, even in a developer saying, sometimes think about how and what you develop from a business perspective, not just from the technical perspective that is so interesting, right? Because it is not interesting unless someone makes money, unfortunately.
But look at education, because we're talking about managing projects. Well, regardless the method or the methodology that you'll be using as an IT software developer or whichever project that you will be managing, and the education system, how many business courses an IT specialist in an IT specialist degree study? Not to mention project management courses, but talk about strategy or whatever. Even at master's level, we lately started introducing like a couple of business courses because it is a management IT degree, but for the IT degrees, so we're talking about, well, if the education system or educational system does not actually prepare practitioners through appropriate qualifications and ingredients, what do you expect? You expect them to struggle and to learn by doing, and this is what happened. I think how agile methods and the development of the IT, the need is the mother of all inventions, as we say, and I think this is what happened with how Agile started. And we are now trying to work together on hopefully improving it even further and convincing other sectors outside the IT and software development that it can be very useful to them in certain aspects.
Yeah, I think on the other hand, we give credit to the book that it's a good first step into how we integrate and business analysis with agile thinking. But there are some gaps in the book, and also there are some rooms for improvement. And there are some examples actually, and I think this book on its second edition will benefit from some sort of studies and research and case studies from the industry, but as well academic research. For example, in chapter 4, they looked at the agile principles, and out of the 12 agile principles, they picked up 6 principles and they relate them to business analysis. But on what basis they've done that is not clear. And also the other remaining 6 principles, they are also relevant and related to business analysis. And this is where the academics can be helpful, that you can't just pick up part of the principles and leave the others without giving any justifications or without giving any analysis, real serious analysis of how you've done that, what kind of methodology you've used. Another example, in chapter 6, there are 5 strategic analysis techniques like the SWOT analysis, PESTEL analysis, and different other strategic analysis techniques. And they've addressed them in a very nice way and really good summary about each one of them and how we use them. But also, they lacked of how the agile thinking, agile principles, agile methods will improve these type of strategic business analysis. So this is another example where there is a lack, and why, if there is a collaboration between practitioners and academics, they can fill in that gap with serious academic evaluation.
No, but I think what you're saying is very, very interesting. It's like music to my ears, because I can see the difference between how an academic is reading this textbook versus what a practitioner would get out of this textbook. So if a practitioner is reading this textbook, and I try to step in these shoes, forgetting everything I know about academia, it was a very difficult experience, but I found that it is very interesting, because it is just like a kid in a candy shop. You've got everything that you need to know about what does Kanban means, what does Bayesian mean, what is Porter 5 forces, what is the difference between SWOT and PESTEL, and what does it mean as an abbreviation. So it is just an array of tools and methodologies, and well, in academia, actually doesn't work this way, because we have theories. We have systems theories, organization theory, operation management theory, quality, TQ. But here, if you read this textbook, you'll find that it is taking a bunch of tools from TQM, and a bunch of tools from strategic management, a bunch of tools of operations management, and then bringing them together. So this can be very useful, because the aim of the book is not for an academic who is specialized in total quality management or whatever. It is for a practitioner, and giving them an introduction of those tools with perhaps a little bit of example of application can broaden their scope and help them to perhaps think in a more, I would say, a wider scope, perspective, without going into the underpinning theory and the justification.
No, there is no need for the underpinning theory, but my point is, because the book, the core and primary aim of the book is to make that kind of integration and link between business analysis and agility. The angle I'm coming from, not to make the book an academic book, no, at all, but to make that claim a reality. So the gap and what is missing in the book is, in some parts, yeah, they covered that, but in many parts of the book, they haven't been able to cover that, because this is the main purpose of the book, is to make that connection between business analysis and agile thinking. Another example in chapter 8, for example.
So maybe this is the minimum platform that they are presenting.
Yeah,
because if they went, I think if they went overboard with this, then it'll be sort of too scary. So I think what their point of view is that we've been coaching that, we've been teaching that, and in our experience, they went into organizations and they delivered that, and they're, in a way, you read this as a what worked for us book. So they left out, perhaps, it's not comprehensive by any means, but it's more to be perhaps seen as what worked for us.
I think Taha has a point that, perhaps my justification, but I let him continue with this after that, they casted so many tools and techniques and methods. And perhaps with this diversity, it was very difficult to wrap up nicely. So they left some unanswered question, if this is what you mean.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, because the core of the book is that connection between business analysis and agility, and that's what they want to present in the book. But when they address it, they just miss that gap. For example, in chapter 8, establishing better links and explanation as to how using goal-based analysis would support achieving business agility. So chapter 8, they are trying to make that. The purpose of chapter 8, they are trying to make that. But what they've done, they've addressed goal-based analysis and business agility separately, but they couldn't make that connection how business agility will be improved and enhanced by goal-based analysis. So what I'm saying in many chapters, and these examples I've given so far, that the main aim of the book, they missed it in some of the chapters. Some of the chapters, they managed to cover it, and they managed to make that connection. In some of the chapters, there are examples where they missed it, and they need to, in the second edition of the book, they need to make that clearer, and especially if they have case studies and examples from practice, because it's a professional book. It is not an academic book, and it's nice and good to be a professional book, but it's also good for practitioners, not for academics, to make that connection and link and integration very clear, so that people like your issue about your company will benefit even more from the book, and they can apply ideas from the book into practice straight away.
Can I open for the questions? And okay.
I just have a very brief comment. I get your point, but on the other hand, in a very different level, in a different way, they actually communicate exactly what's a challenge in practice, is to convey that it's like this, because it might not be. So I struggle on a daily basis to explain the business value. So I've done a lot of business analysis, drawn a lot of conclusions, but I have to explain them and justify them. How does that map into our backlog? Even down to user stories. And that can be a very challenging task to sit in front of a highly technical, specialized person and coming from, well, there's a business need, here how it works. And he's like, yeah, I'm focusing on my code. So in that sense, the fact that it's not that straightforward is actually a reflection of how it is in reality, because it can be very hard to connect the dots that perfectly.
And let's bear in mind that it is, as it says, it's a practical guidance for IT professionals. And if, as an example, or as an individual representing the IT professionals, you believe it has added significantly to your understanding and benefit, then they must be doing something right. But let's take questions from the floor. I'm aware of the time, so we've got room for 2 or perhaps maximum 3 burning questions. You've heard this discussion. You've heard someone like myself trying to be less philosophical and more practical, but it still sounded philosophical. You found some very, very objective commentary from Dr. Taha Elhag, and as usual, he's very rich with his academic standing, and obviously Dr. Hind, and the very practical side from Rene. Your questions, what comes to your mind? Anything that you would like to share with us? Do you find this makes sense?
I'm just wondering, from a non-IT professional, if we look at other businesses, obviously the management theories are implemented in businesses across, and Agile is starting to move kind of out of the IT into other businesses. Do you think this text would support that and is useful for people that are not in the IT field, or is this really specified for IT?
This is a really nice, good point. Yes.
I think it's relevant, especially since it's an easy read, and also that they start with Agile. So they put you in a new playing field if you're not used to that terminology, but they carry you through and they keep reminding you of terminology that you do know. So if you're coming from a business management background, I come from business school, so that was my field, that at least they kind of take you in the hand and say, this is Agile. Not in depth, but this is Agile, and this is how it links to your world and why it makes sense. And that improves your vocabulary. So when you're sitting as a business person in front of technical people, at least you're starting to talk the same language. I think that's a very good point of departure.
Yeah, I think when I've gone through the book, I always kept this at the back of my mind, because these 2 practitioners, the authors of the book, they are coming from the IT sector. But what is nice when you, because I'm not IT sector type of guy, I'm coming from project management and construction industry. When you read through these, yes, the examples they use, the reflections they have on the IT sector, but I can see how the construction industry can benefit from that as well. or any other sector, because I also into other different sectors across project management profession. And that is something where the learning comes across sectors. So even if the focus of the book on the IT sector and business analysis for the IT sector and agility thinking for the IT sector, other industries and other sectors will benefit from the book as well, from the ideas they have addressed. So you can take the ideas of the context and apply it in the construction sector. You can also benefit from that. Yes.
I think the answer to your question in one word is yes, because this book, even if it is not contextualized to the specific business sector that you'll be looking for, it is providing you with, let's say, a method with example. So then you can take this and perhaps tweak it, apply it to your specific context, and learn from it. If you are a business graduate, then you will realize the comments that have been made. But it's not really new to me, but it's a very smart way of doing things. Okay? Providing a solution out of existing theories in perhaps a way that we are not used to it, even under the traditional project management umbrella. Right.
Another point, which is a really also nice point, most of the chapters, they address issues in a really nice, simple, straightforward approach. In chapter 13, they have addressed requirements management and requirements capture in a very nice way. Again, what was missing here, how these agile principles, methods, and techniques will help us doing requirements capturing in a different way, in a better way. So the way they have addressed requirements capturing and requirements management is the normal way. And they talked about agility, but how this agile can, for example, help us prioritize these requirements in a better way. How can we understand the priority ratings of requirements in a better way using the agile principles and agile techniques, for example?
Okay,
yeah.
I'm aware. Thank you very much. Thanks for